There's a lot of news from Columbia to Washington. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down exclusively with the Post and Courier's Bryant Hicks. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, Bryant, it is so good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I appreciate this. Yeah, let me just jump into the obvious.
Okay.
A lot of people are upset with gubernatorial candidate Templeton and her remarks in regards to MLK Day. When you saw those comments, what went through your mind?
Well, you know, I have been in this business about 30 years now. Nothing offends me, nothing surprises me. But when I saw her campaign tweet out a picture of Dr. King with her logo superimposed over his picture, that offended me. It made me mad. It's a horrible move on her part. And I think that she probably heard quite a bit about it. You can't go around embracing the Steve Bannons of the world and talking Confederate stuff and then come out on MLK Day and try to, you know, act like you think he's the greatest thing ever because he was fighting to put a stop to all of that kind of stuff. And I just think she's getting bad advice. She's not an unintelligent person. I've talked to her before, and I think she's quite intelligent. I just think this political game she's playing, it may win her the nomination, but it may cost her soul.
You talk about that nomination. Obviously, Steve Bannon he stepped down from Breitbart. Obviously, him and the now President Trump got into some tangle about comments he made towards the offer with Fire and Fury. That has me thinking this. Now that Steve Bannon has basically been, how can I say this, excommunicated by President Trump, will that hurt her here in South Carolina?
I don't think so. Not if she keeps speaking that message. That's going to play well in certain segments of the primary voters, and I doubt she'll change at all. In fact, I think that whole primary is going to be a race to the right, and she's kind of smothering Kevin Bryant's message. He's not able to get it out because she's so much better at getting the publicity than him. And the governor, I don't know, he doesn't say much of anything about this, does he?
Well, yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying as well. That's what they're saying. And you talk about Kevin Bryant, from the reports that I've seen on Fitz News and other places, it seems like he's lacking in the fundraising department.
He is, but I don't count him out yet. He's an extremely conservative, upstate lawmaker. Right. He speaks the language that a lot of primary voters want to hear, and I think, you know, you've got to consider this a three-person race.
Right.
Unfortunately, Yancey McGill should make it a four-person race, but I don't think he's getting much traction outside the PD.
Why is that? Why is he resonating in the PD and not the rest of the state in your mind?
Well, they know him in the PD, right, and he's been around for a long time, and he's a good guy, and they know that he's worked that way. Outside of the state, he's just not as well known, and I'm sure some people flip the switch when they hear, you know, he was a Democrat, right, for years. You know, like most of the Republicans in this state used to be before it became fashionable to be Republican.
Well, let me switch over. You talk a lot about language in the Confederacy. Obviously, there's a debate right now about the John C. Calhoun statue, which is down there at Marion Square. I know the city of Charleston City Council basically tabled it until the next council meeting. Where are we with this particular discussion?
I think the Calhoun Monument plaque is probably tabled indefinitely.
Okay.
I don't think there's any will for City Council to pick this up again. Nobody really wants to vote on it because no one wins.
Okay.
And that's my column for this week, one of my columns for this week. And you know what? I think that Mayor Tecklenburg offered a very good compromise.
Okay.
You see all these other cities around the nation,
right,
taking down Confederate, right, monuments, and people are saying we got to take this down. And in Charleston, you know, they don't like to change, and of course, the 19th century history is very important to this state.
Right. And
I think that what the mayor suggested, plaques to put, right, these monuments in context, that was as far as you could go that was anywhere near politically palatable. But we had a story in the paper Saturday, you may have seen, where Abigail Garlington talked to some city council members, right, and the African American members of city council all said, we're not voting for this no matter what. and they didn't want to put on there. As I call it in my column, it was the lipstick on a pig argument. And you know what? I think if those members of city council don't want to do this, I don't think the rest of city council should push it. Because one, we don't need a city council vote along racial lines. That is not the message we need to send.
Okay.
And I think that there is no winning situation with this Calhoun Monument.
And I know when I interviewed Robert Mitchell back, I guess earlier last year, Mitch basically said, "Hey, listen, I want to focus on what's going on and what as far as needs for my constituents. The Calhoun statue's been down there as long as he's been living, and he wants to focus on his constituents." When you hear that, what do you say?
I think to some degree he's right. As he said in our story, that statue was a symbol of all he was fighting for during the civil rights movement. And symbols are powerful and they're important, but he's also right that we can get distracted by those things and that there are more important things to focus on. So I think that he's got a pretty good position, and I'd listen to him on that. He's a smart guy.
He is indeed. You talk about other issues that they need to focus on. What should Charleston City Council focus on going forth?
I think they need to focus more on affordable housing
Okay.
because it's getting to the point. I mean, if you look at the median income in this city
Right.
and the median rent in this city,
Right.
there's something that doesn't match up. We are becoming a very expensive city, and we are driving people out, and it doesn't help anything. It doesn't help our residents. It doesn't help traffic, because anybody who works downtown Charleston is going to be commuting in from Monk's Corner or somewhere farther than that at some point. I think they need to be focused on that. I think they need to focus on flooding, and those are the two main things. I think that it would be smart to focus on the West Ashley plan,
Okay.
redevelopment over there. There's a lot of people concerned about that, and West Ashley is the lion's share of the city now. But if they could take care of flooding and affordable housing, that'd be pretty good. Be more than most people could get done.
And you talk about Charleston City Council. Obviously, we had a very interesting election this past fall. When you look back at that to right now, what sticks out in your mind?
I was surprised at how contentious it was. If you look at these city council races, they're decided by a very small number of people, and there's usually almost no interest in it. And we had some races, we had contested races. We had 3 people in at least one race, and they were just nasty. And the same thing has happened not only in Charleston, but you've seen it in some of the other municipalities in the county and around the Low Country. And the optimistic way to look at it, and God knows I don't obviously often look at things optimistically, but the optimistic thing is that more people are becoming politically engaged, and that is a good thing. And that's about the best takeaway I can give you from that. I don't know some of the new city council members,
Okay.
and I don't know what it's going to do to the city or how it's going to change or any shifting alliances or whatever's going on there. But it's going to be interesting to watch and see.
Yes, indeed. And let me take you back to Columbia, because obviously the focus right now is about utilities. When I talked with Representative Bennett on Friday, she basically says, "I'm worried about utilities." How did we get here?
We got here because 10 or 11 years ago, the legislature allowed lobbyists for the utility companies to write the law that became the Baseload Review Act that allowed them to charge ratepayers. And I learned the other week, you can't call them customers because we don't have a choice. They got a monopoly. And that allowed them to basically use us for debt service. They already kind of use us for debt service, but to charge future debt to us. And oddly enough, if you go back and look at that debate, and this was a different legislature, so you can't blame all the people that are there now for this. But if you look back, the people who fought against the Baseload Review Act, who saw this was a bad thing, were mainly Charleston people. It was interesting that Senator Chip Campson fought against it, Chip Limehouse fought against it, a couple of others said this is a bad deal, and nobody would listen to them. And now we're in a position, and everybody at the State House is talking tough, and they're going to smack SCNG around, or SCANA, parent company around, and they're going to get these, charges for the nuclear plants off the bills. And I think they mean it, and I think they're as fired up as they've ever been about anything, because they're getting a lot of calls about it. What I fear is that political reality is going to set in, and we're going to end up paying for some of this anyway, because they're worried about company going bankrupt, or if this Dominion Energy out of Virginia buys them. Dominion's not going to buy them if they can't continue charging all the SC&G people for these failed nuclear plants.
Okay.
And I don't know how this deal works out. I don't know how. This is where I'm a pessimist. I don't see how the people of South Carolina don't get hosed somehow in this. And it's just a matter. I think the legislature is going to fight to make it as minimal as possible, especially since it's an election year. But they're genuinely unhappy about this and trying to fix it. I just don't know if they can pull off everything they're saying they're going to.
You talk about the election season. Who are the winners and losers in your mind when it comes to certain races? I mean, I just talked to you about House District 110. You got House District 114. I think Lynn Bennett is just going to be an incumbent now. I don't think she has a challenge against Bobby Howell anymore. Where are we with the elections?
Well, I don't even know. I haven't been paying attention to anything at the legislative level.
Okay.
I've been, watching the governor's race,
Sure.
which is about the only one here. And the congressional race could get interesting with Mark Sanford.
And Katie.
Yeah. I truly think that it's going to be a Democratic wave year, but the way the districts are set up in South Carolina,
Right.
I don't know if that wave is going to be able to change the tide. If it was going to anywhere, it would be the first district, though. If you look at Sanford's congressional district, it's along the coast. It's mostly Charleston County, and it goes down into Beaufort County and Hilton Head a little bit, and it goes up into Berkeley County.
Right.
If you look at Charleston County is about a 50-50 county. It's about half blue, half red. If it was just Charleston's congressional district, a Democrat could win it easily. The thing that's kind of propping up the Republicans and Sanford's hold on this is Berkeley County, because it's largely Republican. But we'll just have to see how turnout is and who's motivated to get out. Right now, all the energy seems to be behind the Democrats.
Wow. Well, Bryant Hicks, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Thanks a lot. Always good to talk to you.
Likewise.